The DGX series from Yamaha, one of their more successful product lines, and yet it's very hard to find a decent demo of one on YouTube. Lucky you've got gear facts. This is the DGX-530. Now obviously you can tell by the setup that it's meant to emulate a full-size 88 key piano. First point though is that these are not weighted keys. They're supposed to be graded action keys. And they do feel nice. I have to say they sound quite clicky when you touch them. And I'm not a fan of that. The pressure of the actual keys is pleasant. I don't really see how they're semi-weighted though. It pretty much feels like a good quality keyboard. The quality of the speakers though is a cut above that standard. And it does incorporate Yamaha XG Lite, which is a good system. Let's check out some of these sounds. So that's a good introduction to the general feel of the sounds of the DGX-530. Very competent, good quality sounds, possibly a little bit conservative. If you're looking for synthesizing and lavish effects and that kind of thing, you might have to look for a different model. You do have 500 good quality sounds, but if you really want to do something with them, you're limited to a few types of reverb, a few types of chorus, but there is a form of delay in the harmony section and also a couple of other tricks which we'll have a look at now. So our display changes to harmonies, and there are about 20 harmony types to choose from if we use our master controller over here. We find that the first 5 don't appear to do much. That's because they only have an effect when an accompaniment is playing. They'll make whatever you play sound a little bit more harmonious and elaborate if there's an accompaniment playing. To get changes to solo melody, you move to 6 onwards and we start to get some interesting effects on our chords. So I'm just holding down a chord there and it's giving us a trill. So it works almost like an arpeggiator in a very simple form. If we turn it up to a 1/16th note trill, then we get something quite a lot faster, and we can go right up to 1/32, which is great if you're playing riffs that do involve trills that are a little bit tricky for your fingers. So I wasn't doing any trills there. And that's a pretty nifty trick. There's also a kind of a simulated delay. Let's say we'll do a 1/16 delay. And I'll just say, for those of you who are thinking of doing MIDI programming, this is pretty cool because each delayed note is actually sent as a MIDI signal. So when you go back to editing your actual MIDI file, you'll see each delayed note mapped out in your file. So that's very usable. There's also a tremolo effect, which is actually nothing like tremolo. All it does is kind of pulses the note. Let's have a listen. So that's nothing like what I understand a tremolo effect to be, but again, it's changing the MIDI signal so that when you're playing one chord, you'll actually get a pulse of that chord every 1/16. Is that a useful tool? Well, you be the judge, but as someone who likes to get a little bit creative with sounds, I'm glad it's there. Let's move on to some rhythms. Again, the rhythm section reflects what you'd expect to see on Yamaha portable keyboards, but the extra little bit of professionalism in the sound is noticeable. And that just about concludes my introduction to the DGX-530 gear facts, friends. What a great introduction to piano playing for a student this would be. The keys, like I said, they're not weighted, but they are velocity sensitive. And there's no doubt that they feel nice. And of course there's 88 of them, so we do have a pretty complete system here. Also there's one or two other features I want to emphasize, and that is first of all the pitch bend wheel, which can add a whole lot of fun to your playing, particularly to the synthesizer sounds, not normally for piano, like I just did. The next thing is the screen. The screen is full of graphics, it's very soft, so easy to look at and integrate with your music. There's also a contrast control over on the back so you can get it just right. We've looked at some sounds and rhythms, and we'll be getting into that a little bit more deeply into the next video. One thing I do want to point out though, and it's something to always check when you're buying a Yamaha keyboard, is the master controller. These can often get a little bit unresponsive, so if you're buying second hand, be sure to check that. This one's having a few problems, but it's still usable. If it's not working though, that's not the end of the world. You can use plus and minus right here to scroll through your sounds or any other values that you need to change. On the back it's a bit simpler than you might expect. We've got a sustain pedal socket, which I wasn't able to use because, interestingly, my Yamaha sustain pedal had the wrong polarity, so when it was pressed in, the notes wouldn't sustain, and when it was released, they would sustain. So that's the opposite of what you want. So you'll need to make sure that your polarity is right for that sustain pedal socket. We've got USB in, also a slot for a USB stick so you can import your own MIDI files and save any setups that you've created as well, and there's that contrast control. Apart from a headphone socket over here, that's all that's on the back. In the next video, we're going to look at a wider range of sounds, beats, and sequencing functions. But for now, that's my introduction to Yamaha's DGX series, this model being the DGX-530. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you very soon for the next one.